Tom lived in a quiet town where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. The streets were narrow and clean, the houses old but well cared for. Most people followed the same routine every day. They woke up early, went to work, returned home, and spent evenings in front of their televisions. Tom was no different. He was a simple man with a simple life. He worked at a hardware store and spent most of his free time fixing small things around his house. His house stood at the edge of town, close to an empty field. It had been built many years ago and passed through several owners before Tom bought it. The backyard was large but neglected. Dry grass covered most of it, and an old wooden fence leaned slightly to one side. Tom often thought about improving the yard, but he never found the time or energy. One morning, however, he decided to change that. It was a warm day, and the sky was clear. Tom wanted to plant a tree in the backyard, something that would make the place feel more alive. He chose a spot near the fence where the ground looked firm. He picked up a shovel from his shed and began to dig. At first, the work felt normal. The soil was dry but easy to move. He focused on the rhythm of lifting and pushing dirt aside. After some time, the shovel struck something hard. The sound was sharp and unexpected. Tom stopped and looked down into the hole. He thought it might be a stone or an old pipe. He dug more carefully, pushing soil away with his hands. Soon, he saw a flat wooden surface beneath the dirt. His heart began to beat faster. Tom cleared more soil and realized he was looking at the top of a wooden box. It was larger than he expected and very solid. The wood looked dark and aged, as if it had been buried for many years. Thick metal locks held the lid shut. The metal was covered in rust, but it still looked strong. Tom stepped back and wiped his hands on his pants. A strange feeling settled in his chest. The box did not feel like normal trash. It felt placed there on purpose. He looked around the yard, then at the neighboring houses. Everything was quiet. No one was watching him. Curiosity won over fear. Tom decided to pull the box out of the hole. It was heavy, and he struggled, but after some effort, he managed to drag it onto the grass. He stared at it for a long moment, wondering what to do next. He told himself it could be something harmless, maybe old tools or forgotten valuables. He carried the box into the shed to keep it out of sight. Inside the shed, the light was dim, and the air smelled of oil and wood. Tom examined the box closely. He noticed strange marks carved into the wood. They were not letters, just symbols that meant nothing to him. The more he looked at them, the more uneasy he felt. Tom grabbed a hammer and tried to break one of the locks. It took several hard hits before the metal finally gave way. The sound echoed in the shed, making him jump. He paused for a moment, listening. Everything remained silent. When he opened the lid, a cold feeling ran through him. Inside the box were several neatly wrapped bundles. They were tied with old string and stacked carefully. There were also small metal objects, wrapped in cloth, and a thick notebook placed on top. The notebook had a black cover with no writing on it. Tom picked up the notebook first. It felt heavy in his hands. He opened it slowly. The pages were filled with writing, all done in the same careful style. Names, dates, and numbers covered the paper. Some pages included short notes about places and events. Tom recognized a few locations immediately. They were places near his town. His mouth went dry. This was not random junk. These items were important to someone. He flipped through more pages and saw repeated names and symbols. Some entries were marked with lines and notes that suggested planning and movement. Tom did not fully understand what he was reading, but he sensed it was serious. He closed the notebook and placed it back in the box. His hands were shaking now. He wrapped the box again and pushed it deeper into the shed, covering it with old tools and boards. For the rest of the day, Tom could not focus on anything else. His mind kept returning to the box and what it might mean. That evening, Tom sat alone in his living room. The television was on, but he was not watching it. Every sound outside made him tense. A car passing by, a dog barking in the distance, even the wind against the windows made his heart jump. He felt like the ground beneath his house was no longer safe. When night came, Tom tried to sleep, but he could not. Images of the box and the notebook filled his thoughts. He wondered who had buried it and why they never came back. He also wondered if someone would come looking for it now. The next morning, Tom woke up early. Sunlight filled the room, but it did not bring comfort. He went straight to the shed and checked the box. It was still there, exactly where he left it. Nothing had changed, yet the fear remained. Tom decided to read the notebook more carefully. He sat at his kitchen table and turned the pages slowly. He noticed patterns in the writing. Certain names appeared again and again. Some entries mentioned money, storage, and movement. One page included a rough map. Tom froze when he saw it. The map showed a small area with simple markings. One mark stood out. It was placed exactly where his house was located. Tom stared at it for a long time. His hands began to sweat. This was no accident. The box had been hidden in his yard on purpose. As the day went on, Tom tried to act normal. He went to work and spoke with customers, but his mind was far away. He felt like he was carrying a secret too heavy to hold. When he returned home, he noticed something strange. His gate was slightly open. Tom was sure he had closed it that morning. He stood still and listened. The yard was quiet. Slowly, he walked toward the shed. His heart pounded in his chest. When he opened the door, he saw that the boards covering the box had been moved. The box itself was still there, but the lid was not fully closed. Someone had touched it. Tom stepped back, fear rushing through him. He locked the shed and went inside his house. He knew then that finding the box was not just a strange discovery. It was the beginning of something dangerous. He sat down and looked at the notebook one last time. Whatever was buried in his yard was connected to people who did not want to be found. Tom understood one thing clearly. Digging that hole had pulled him into a story much bigger than himself, and there was no easy way out. Tom did not sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every sound around his house. The wind moved the trees, the walls creaked softly, and once he heard a car slow down on the road outside. Each sound made his body tense. His mind kept returning to the shed, to the box, and to the open lid that proved someone else knew. When morning came, Tom felt exhausted but alert. He got up early and walked through his house, checking every door and window. Everything was locked. Nothing else looked disturbed. Still, the feeling of being watched did not leave him. He made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with the notebook. He decided that hiding from the truth would only make things worse. He needed to understand what he had found. Slowly, carefully, he began reading from the first page. The notebook was written in a clear hand. The early pages described meetings, deliveries, and storage locations. The words were simple but serious. It became clear that the notebook belonged to people who planned everything in detail. They tracked dates, amounts, and movements with great care. As Tom continued reading, he noticed that many entries mentioned hidden spots. Fields, old buildings, basements, yards. The writers seemed to choose places where no one would look. One page mentioned a house near the edge of town. The description matched Tom's house perfectly. Tom felt his chest tighten. He now understood that his home was not chosen by chance. Long before he bought it, someone had decided this land would hide something important. The box in his yard was not the only one. It was part of a larger plan. He turned to the page with the map again. This time, he noticed smaller marks around the main one. They pointed to areas nearby. Tom realized that other hidden items might still be buried around town. The thought made him uneasy. If he found one by accident, others could do the same. Tom knew he could not keep this to himself. At the same time, fear stopped him from acting quickly. He worried about who might come looking for the box. He worried that involving the wrong people could bring trouble to his door. Later that morning, Tom went to work. He tried to act normal, greeting customers and helping them find tools and supplies. Inside, his thoughts raced. Every person who walked into the store felt suspicious. Every sound made him look up. Around midday, his coworker asked if he was feeling well. Tom smiled and said he was just tired. He did not trust himself to say anything more. He knew that once he spoke the truth out loud, things would change forever. After work, Tom drove home slowly. He checked his mirrors often, watching for any car that might follow him. When he reached his street, he noticed a dark car parked farther down the road. It was not a car he recognized. Tom parked his own car and waited. The dark car did not move. He sat there for several minutes, gripping the steering wheel. Finally, he got out and walked toward his house, trying to stay calm. As he reached his front door, he heard an engine start. The dark car drove away slowly. Tom stood still, his heart pounding. The message was clear. Someone was paying attention. Inside his house, Tom locked the door and leaned against it. He knew he could not stay silent anymore. The box, the notebook, the map, and now the car all pointed to one thing. He was in danger as long as the items stayed with him. That evening, Tom packed the notebook and the papers into a sturdy bag. He wrapped them carefully, making sure nothing could fall out. He left the box itself hidden in the shed. It was too large to move without drawing attention. Before leaving, Tom wrote down everything he remembered. The hole, the box, the symbols, the open lid, the car. He wanted a clear record, in case something happened to him. He waited until it was dark, then left his house quietly. He did not turn on the lights. He walked to his car and drove away, choosing back roads instead of the main street. Tom headed to the nearest town with a police station. The drive felt longer than usual. Every passing car made his heart jump. He kept reminding himself to stay focused. When he arrived, he parked near the station and sat for a moment. His hands were shaking. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. The station was calm. A few officers sat at desks, talking quietly. Tom approached the front and asked to speak with someone in private. His voice was unsteady, but firm. An officer led him to a small room. Tom placed the bag on the table and began explaining everything from the beginning. He spoke slowly, making sure not to miss any detail. The officer listened carefully, his expression growing more serious with each minute. When Tom showed the notebook and the map, the officer left the room briefly. He returned with another officer. They examined the pages closely and exchanged quiet words. Tom could tell they understood the importance of what he brought. They told Tom that the items were connected to an old criminal group that once operated in the region. The group had used fear and secrecy to control many areas. Most members had disappeared years ago, but their hidden items were still being discovered from time to time. The officers said Tom had done the right thing by coming forward. They assured him that his safety was important. They asked him to stay in town for the night while they made arrangements. That night, Tom stayed at a small motel arranged by the police. He felt relief knowing the notebook was no longer with him. Still, sleep did not come easily. His thoughts remained heavy. The next morning, the police informed Tom they would search his property. They wanted to secure the box and check for any other hidden items. Tom agreed and returned home with them. Several officers examined the backyard carefully. They reopened the hole and removed the box fully. They photographed it, documented everything, and loaded it into a secure vehicle. They also searched nearby areas, guided by the map. Neighbors watched from a distance, whispering to each other. Tom felt exposed, but also relieved. The secret was no longer his alone. After the search, the officers spoke with Tom again. They told him the case would be handled carefully. Some details would remain private to avoid panic. They advised Tom to stay with a friend for a while. Tom packed a few clothes and left his house behind. As he drove away, he looked at it one last time. What had once been a quiet place now felt heavy with memory. Tom knew his life had changed. He had uncovered something meant to stay buried. Even though the police were involved now, the fear did not disappear. He understood that secrets have long shadows, and sometimes they follow those who find them. As he settled into his temporary place, Tom wondered what would come next. The box was gone, but the story was not over. He felt certain that the truth hidden in the ground would continue to shape his future, whether he wanted it to or not. Tom stayed with his friend for several days. The house was small and quiet, but it felt safer than his own. Still, safety did not bring peace. His mind kept returning to the backyard, the hole, and the box that had changed everything. Even with the police handling the case, Tom felt a weight inside him that would not lift. The police contacted Tom often. They asked questions and checked on him. They told him the items from the box were being studied carefully. The notebook had helped them connect old records and forgotten cases. It filled gaps that had remained empty for many years. What Tom found had meaning far beyond his yard. One afternoon, an officer visited Tom and explained more. The hidden items were part of a system used long ago. People hid things in places where no one would think to look. When time passed and plans failed, the items stayed underground, silent and dangerous in their secrecy. Tom's house had simply been one link in a long chain. The officer told Tom that no one had come forward to claim the box. That was good news. It meant the past was finally losing its grip. Still, the officer advised caution. Some secrets fade slowly. Tom returned to his house only once more. He needed to collect the rest of his belongings. 2 officers stayed nearby while he packed. The house felt empty even though his furniture was still there. The walls seemed to hold echoes of his fear. When he stepped into the backyard, he paused. The hole had been filled again. Fresh soil marked the spot where the box once rested. The ground looked calm, almost innocent. Tom knew better. He realized how easily danger can hide beneath normal life. Tom decided he could not live there anymore. He contacted a real estate agent and put the house up for sale. He did not explain the full reason. He simply said the place held memories he needed to leave behind. Weeks passed. Life slowly found a new rhythm. Tom moved into a small apartment in another town. It was closer to his job and far from open fields and quiet fences. The new place felt lighter. There was no yard to dig, no soil to wonder about. The police eventually told Tom the case was closed. The items were secured. Records were updated. Loose ends were tied. The past had been faced and placed where it belonged. Tom thanked them, though he knew the experience would stay with him forever. One evening, Tom sat by his window and watched the city lights. Cars moved steadily below. People walked by, living their own lives. The world continued, unaware of how close hidden danger can rest beneath ordinary ground. Tom thought about how one small choice led to everything. He only wanted to plant a tree. He wanted shade and growth. Instead, he uncovered secrets and fear. It taught him how fragile normal life can be. Months later, Tom planted a small plant on his apartment balcony. It was not a tree, but it was enough. As he watered it, he felt calm for the first time in a long while. Growth did not always need deep roots. Sometimes it only needed light and care. Tom learned an important lesson. The past does not always stay buried. It waits quietly until someone stumbles upon it. When that happens, courage matters more than curiosity. He also learned that doing the right thing does not always feel heroic. Often, it feels terrifying. But facing truth, even when it is heavy, prevents it from harming others. As time passed, the fear faded. It never disappeared fully, but it softened. Tom returned to simple joys. Work, reading, quiet evenings. Life found balance again. Sometimes, late at night, Tom still remembered the sound of the shovel hitting wood. He remembered the symbols on the box and the map in the notebook. Those memories no longer ruled him. They reminded him to be careful and aware. Tom understood that some discoveries change a person. They open eyes and reshape trust. He accepted that change and moved forward. The ground in his old backyard remained silent. The secrets were gone, taken away and locked safely. What remained was a lesson written not in a notebook, but in Tom's life. He no longer dug without thought. He no longer assumed the world was simple. He knew now that darkness can hide anywhere, even under a peaceful home. But he also knew something else. Light exists in choice. When faced with fear, choosing honesty can break long shadows. Tom closed his window and turned off the light. Tomorrow would be another ordinary day, and that was enough.